Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday, and what a weekend it was since we were last with you. A lot of games, not very many of them close. A lot of surprising active, inactive decisions after we previewed things on Wednesday, so we will dive in. And that started with the Thursday night game. Aaron Jones did, in fact, get activated, but it did nothing for the Vikings, who lost 37-10 to the Chargers. Dennis, what do we make of the Vikings? They don't really seem to do a lot well. They aren't blocking very well, as witnessed by their second quarterback having a massive injury, Carson Wentz. They say broken and dislocated non-throwing shoulder, which will end his season. His stint here at the end with the Vikings may have ended his lust for being a starting quarterback. They don't run particularly well. Jones came back, and he and Mason combined for 9 carries for 18 yards, and they aren't playing defense very well. This feels like a really different team than the one that won 14 games in 2024.
Well, it is different. I mean, Sam Darnold is gone. So
yeah, that can't be the only.
No, it's, in this particular game, they just couldn't get anything going. They did not possess the ball, had almost a 20-minute time of possession disadvantage. The Chargers ran 23 more plays than they did. I mean, it's just tough to score points when you don't have the ball and you're not moving it. Wentz looked like he was in a lot of pain out there. They probably should have pulled him significantly sooner. But, NFL players, even the ones that we think are soft, are probably some of the toughest players on the planet.
I know, but how much more permanent damage did they give him by, it's not up. Player is always going to tell you they want to play. That goes back to a long time ago. It's supposed to be up to the coaches and the trainers to be watching this and to be doing better than that. When you hear about the injury afterward, it's like, okay. And to know that he sustained that initial injury initially, it was either a game or two ago. Let me look up.
Yeah,
I think they said it was against. It wasn't against the Eagles. I think it was against the Browns. They said he got that.
It's one of those situations where the team is trying to rally, and the hope of getting Aaron Jones back might give the running game a boost. And you've got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, who are all pretty high level talents, especially Jefferson. And their offensive line has been banged up and not playing well, and this is the result of it. Jefferson was good for fantasy, not great, but good. Addison was okay for fantasy. Hawkinson didn't do a whole heck of a lot. It was a wild situation where at one point there was Wentz and Mariota and Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton out there and is like, all right, who of these guys, who's gonna be the guy you need to pick up for fantasy? I had Jackie pick up Dalton. Now that I think about it, Beth picked up Mariota. I advised Jackie she needed it. First, I had her pick up Tyrod Taylor, and I didn't go Dalton or Mariota because of the matchups. And then Taylor got injured, so I had her pivot to Kirk Cousins when we knew Penix was going to be out. None of them really did anything for fantasy. You may as well have just left a zero there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Meanwhile, the Chargers, they were a more run-heavy team last year. We thought they were going to continue to be run-heavy, and it's not that they didn't run the ball well. I mean, they ran for over 200 yards, but they have been a very much pass attack-oriented offense this year. Justin Herbert now quarterback 4 on the season. Do you like this pass-friendly Chargers offense?
Well, it's like, what happened to Quentin Johnston? So it was
everybody has a bad game.
It was the lowest attempts and completions for Justin Herbert on the season. Now, that being said, Johnston ran 88.5% route participation on Jefferson or on Herbert's dropbacks. So he was out there. McConkey's getting more volume. After 10 for McConkey, it was 5 for Gadsden, 5 for Keenan Allen. But they only threw the ball 25 times, so there wasn't a ton. And, those guys were 20 of the pass attempts right there. Gadsden had another monster game. You love that, 5 for 77 and a touchdown. But it almost feels like somebody's going to get dinged. Now, Keenan Allen ran the lowest or played the fewest number of snaps between Trey Harris and Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, and Keenan. Keenan was the lowest snap volume, though he had 5 targets with 4 catches. So, when he was in there, he was getting the ball. But when your opponent can't really do anything and they don't have the ball, Jarrett Patterson and Kamani Vidal combined for 34 carries for 147 yards. While Patterson didn't do great, Vidal had another fantastic game, also added 1 catch for 10 yards. They got Minnesota down, and then they weren't able, they just held steady. The defense didn't give up any big plays.
Well, and I think that might have hurt Quentin Johnston a little bit because he's been their down the field guy, which would make me a little nervous for next week too, because they're playing the Titans, another team that I don't think is going to present a big challenge to them.
The Chargers had 5 players with plays of 17 yards or more, so it isn't like there were no big plays available. It was honestly, it just feels like it was a function of there just only so many to go around. And now the Chargers, they've got a lot of weapons, and they should be getting Amari and Hampton back, this week, next week?
No, I think he's still a ways away. Now that they'll need him for Tennessee. It was a week of big blowout games, a lot of them coming in a packed early window on Sunday, which not great. But there were also some surprising blowouts. So the Dolphins came in looking clinically dead and destroyed the Falcons in Atlanta 34-10. Tua 20 of 26, 205, but 4 passing touchdowns. They were able to run the ball with both Achane and Ollie Gordon. They got a lot of stuff going. Does this make you feel better about the Dolphins?
Sort of. It was one of those situations where as a rosterer of Devon Achane and Tua Tagovailoa, and I think I even have a Waddle share out there. Sure, I'm excited about it. I've got one rebuild where I'm starting Ollie Gordon because why not? I don't really have any running backs. It's a tear down.
That was probably
and he's going out there and putting up 66 total yards and a touchdown. I'm like, dude, ease up a little bit. No, I mean, Tua was very efficient. They didn't put up a ton of yards. Achane wasn't real efficient on the ground, though he 18 carries for 67 yards. But when everybody's catching the ball and nobody's dropping it, it's easy to be productive.
Before I move on to the Falcons, I did look it up. Omarion Hampton, as of Monday, still in a walking boot. And the estimate for his return is November 30th. So I guess we'll see. He can heal, but for the Falcons, Michael Penix did end up getting ruled out, so Kirk Cousins got to come in. Kirk Cousins has been a popular guess about trade discussions, even though he has that monster contract. 21 of 31, 173 yards, no interceptions, which is good, but the offense looked terrible. He looked terrible throwing the ball. Did not look very like he has vastly improved from the lack of mobility we saw last year. Do you think this is going to quiet some of the trade talk?
Well, it certainly should. But here's the wild thing. So this game was set up to be a monster running game for Atlanta and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. It was a bad rush defense in Miami and a great rush offense in Atlanta. It almost feels like the Atlanta coaches just outsmarted themselves. They were like, well, we're going to, Penix has been kind of hot and cold. Kirk Cousins has had some monster seasons, and we're just going to try to do something different to catch Miami off guard. I mean, how can you justify running the ball 13 times with Robinson and Algier against the second worst rushing defense in the NFL?
Part of it is because they got into a hole so early, which I was kind of surprised about because Miami didn't appear like they could block very well before, and Atlanta had a pretty good pass rush, and they just started to get trucked kind of early and trying to come back, and they couldn't make anything happen.
I mean, it was a great day for Kyle Pitts, 9 for 9, but for just 60 yards, 59 yards.
Didn't help.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. That happened so late.
I know. We were traveling, and so I'm like, well, he's in some of my lineups. I didn't even realize he was that hurt. So
gonna rock the zero there.
Surprisingly, probably the best game of the day was the New York Jets at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Jets pulling off the 39-38 victory for their first win of the season. Embattled starter Justin Fields did end up getting the nod. 21 of 32, 244 yards, a touchdown, rushed for 31. The offense seemed to run better. Breece Hall looked really good, which helped. But did this performance say more about Justin Fields or the complete lack of defense for the Bengals?
Probably the Bengals defense. I'm in my heart, I'm as big a Justin Fields stan as there is, but he's been bad this year. Slightly better completion percentage than Joe Flacco, a little better yardage, one less touchdown. But it was just the Bengals defense is bad. And I'm not sure, I've spent most of this season with the mantra that if the Bengals don't draft 2 to 3 high-level offensive linemen, I just don't know what they're doing. But their defense is so bad, I just don't know. They don't have enough first and second round picks to rebuild the offensive line and the defense. Fields did everything you needed him to do, and he's got to play well against bad teams. He did. He ran the ball 11 times, just 31 yards, but Breece Hall was a monster. Isaiah Davis had a good game. And then Fields completed 21 of 32. I wish he could have been doing it with Garrett Wilson. That would have been fantastic. I don't think anybody needs.
Well, I was
64
impressed
yards
that
and 3 catches, touchdown from Tyler Johnson.
I was impressed that they managed to do all that without Garrett Wilson too, and Josh Reynolds went on IR during the week. So I still maintain the skill positions they built around him outside of Hall and Wilson, who wasn't there, is not good either.
No, it's not. So I mean, Mason Taylor's coming on and kind of he seems like he's more than just the last man standing there. He seems like he's going to be a legitimate NFL player.
Meanwhile, not much new to say about the Bengals. They look very much like they did in 2024 with Joe Burrow. You're still good firing up Chase Brown, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, probably even Noah Fant, and Joe Flacco was good. I thought he would be a top 12 quarterback for the week. He finished as quarterback 7. But they literally have no defense, so if they don't outscore you, and this feels like they were making some momentum after they beat the Steelers to get back closer. This feels almost like a nail in the coffin of trying to come back.
Big step backwards. I mean, the hard thing is like T. Higgins, when you look at the fantasy score, it's great. What's that? 11.4 points. But it's only like
11 points.
You can't have him with just 2 targets. He needs to get more targets.
Well, he had gotten a bunch in the weeks before. He's been doing pretty well with Flacco.
But Chase has 45 targets in the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's insane.
I mean, that was the case a lot last year with Burrow. He was getting tons of targets. Higgins was just getting touchdowns, which really helped. And he's continuing to get touchdowns with Flacco. So another game that was a horrendous blowout on Sunday. The New England Patriots hosted the Cleveland Browns and won 32-13. Dennis, we've now seen Dillon Gabriel start 4 games. He's 1-3, completing just under 60% of his passes, 702 yards, has 5 touchdowns against 2 interceptions, has taken 11 sacks. What do you think of him as a starter?
He's a young guy playing on a team that is struggling offensively, has a mediocre at best to probably poor offensive line because of age and injuries. He's getting the ball into the middle of the field to his running backs and his tight ends. 24 of 35 targets went to tight ends and running backs this week. Judkins banging up his shoulder, only 9 carries for 19 yards. I think they need Judkins to be able to run the ball more effectively. Now, I think we expected New England's defense to play well, but 35 pass attempts for only 156 yards. When your running game is only producing, 70 yards, 65 yards, is tough. It is tough to win. The Patriots offense played better and was able to put up points against what is a really good defense, but it feels like Gabriel is in a no-win situation. That they're gonna go to at some point, like he isn't an elevator at this point. He's an experienced college quarterback that's probably not going to take a lot of chances, isn't going to be able to put a team on his back and will it to victory. But he's probably also not going to make a ton of mistakes. He did have the 2 interceptions this week, and he gets a fumble here and there. Some of it is, because he's short, he doesn't necessarily, I think, see the field as well. But he believes he believes in the plays when they're drawn up, and he understands how to execute them. He has some potential. And we've seen short quarterbacks be successful. He's mobile. He is very much in the Russell Wilson kind of mold. Maybe not quite with the same kind of deep ball as Russ, but you need to be able to protect him better and get more out of the running game.
Meanwhile, for the Patriots, we thought TreVeyon Henderson had perhaps been left for dead, but instead, 10 carries turns it into 75 yards. Is this a hopeful sign for you?
I want it to be. I'm trying to convince myself it's a hopeful sign. I'm trying to lean into it, but the truth is he only played 21% of the snaps. And while, let's see, Stevenson had 16 touches to Henderson's 16 opportunities to Henderson's 10. When Henderson was getting the ball, it's not great that he only played 21% of the snaps. He didn't get any targets, and he's, noted for his ability as a pass catcher, as well as being an explosive runner. Will I take it? 10 for 75 all day, every day. It's hard to count on that kind of production, though, when you're only playing 21% of the snaps.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if he got in there a little more because they were up by a sizable amount.
Yeah.
Another game that turned out to be a blowout, the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the New York Giants. Giants actually beat them when they played a couple weeks ago, but the Eagles won this in a walkover, 38-20. The Giants lost Cam Skattebo, who went on IR today. His season is over with an ankle dislocation. What does losing Skattebo for a team that already lost Malik Neighbors mean for the Giants?
They have a serviceable running game with Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. That's probably as generous as I can be. Tracy had a decent year last year. Having Andrew Thomas be healthy and the offensive line stay healthy, and Jackson Dart being a dynamic player is going to definitely be good. That being said, there's not a lot of high-end receiving weapons. They're playing with Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, and I don't know that that's going to win you any playoff games. It's probably going to be a 60-40 split between Tracy and Singletary, and this is going to end up being, I think, where Jackson Dart kind of leans into heavier passing attack, because Cam Skattebo was a guy they could use as a battering ram to grind it out. I just don't think you can do that with Tracy or Singletary. I think, like I said, they're serviceable NFL running backs, but I don't the punch that Cam Skattebo did.
Meanwhile, it's a mix of good and bad news. If you roster Saquon Barkley, he looked like his old self for the time that he was in, running for 150 yards and a touchdown, including a 65-yard breakaway. Also caught 4 passes for another touchdown, reminding you a little bit of the force that he was in 2024, but he left with a groin injury. They said after the game he could have returned if they needed him. Eagles go on a bye in week 9, but still, does this give you any pause if you roster Barkley?
Not really. I mean, I tend to believe, especially with a week off and the talk that he could have come back, that he'll be just fine. We'll have to see. Like, their offense has been up and down. So, not having A.J. Brown, they only threw the ball to 5 different players. And they only threw it 20 times. They really coasted. What was the time of possession? They had about an 7.5 minute time of possession advantage, and ran only 7 more offensive plays. They've got a very good defense and very good players. I don't think they're going to trade A.J. Brown. Now, we've seen crazier stuff happen, but Devontae Smith is really good. Dallas Goedert producing like you want to see out of your tight end one. He's having a great year. And then you've got Barkley. I don't know how much I want to rely on the passing game, though, if they're going to continue to throw the ball in the low 20s.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what happened to them last year. They would get these huge leads and didn't need to. I think the most encouraging thing for me about the Eagles game was we got to see what it would be like if Barkley was out and they used Tank Bigsby, and he actually looked good. So if you were holding on to those shares that you wept over when it got dumped, you might feel some hope. Another early game blowout. The Buffalo Bills went to Carolina, got the 40-9 walkover. Not much new to say about Buffalo. It was all about Josh Allen and James Cook running for 4 touchdowns between the two of them. Khalil Shakir also finding his way into the end zone, but it's roulette playing any of their passing assets. For the Panthers, Andy Dalton, we'll throw him on the pile of veterans who made a start, who may have made their last start. But I want to talk about Jalen Coker. We liked him last year. He showed a little bit. Finally back healthy off of IR. We had noted that Xavier Legette had been stepping up in recent games, but now with Coker back, it seems like McMillan's target share is remaining the same. Do you think that Coker's return could eat into some of our optimism about Legette?
So the Legette-Coker dynamic is going to be very dependent on how many passes Carolina is throwing. I agree. You're going to get Teteroa McMillan is going to get the lion's share of the targets. He's going to have the highest percentage. Coker and Legette do different things. Coker is kind of a hybrid of McMillan, and Legette is kind of a hybrid of McMillan and Coker. So Legette can do some stuff out of the slot. He's good on the manufactured kind of touches, the bubble screens, tunnel screens, things like that, because he's got that good size. He also has really good speed, so he can go down the field. He isn't as good at converting them as Teteroa McMillan. I think if we can, this is a team that I would like to see kind of narrow the funnel with the three of them. If they can do that and maybe bump Coker and Legette into that 5 to 6 target range while McMillan stays up in that 9 to 10 range, then I think you've got some potential. And that may be something that Bryce Young can do. I think we're seeing Andy Dalton, the years are, he's been reeling in the years, as Steely Dan would say.
Yeah, it was
so
not
time.
It was not a good week for guys that we had gone into saying like these are the most elite backups in the league. Just maybe not a good.
Turns out they're just the most backups in the league.
Later we can throw Marcus Mariota on that pile as well. The Baltimore Ravens hosted the Chicago Bears and got the 30-16 victory, looking a little bit better all over the field. For the Bears, we've been waiting to see if Luther Burden would break out, and occasionally this season he gets a deep one, but it seems like Olamide Zaccheaus has kind of locked himself in as that third receiver and gets targets. He doesn't do a lot with them. Did have 7 receptions this week, only 33 yards. Are you buying into Zaccheaus at all if you're in a deep league?
Oh yeah, he's your classic low end flex. If you're in a 3 flex league, 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league, Olamide Zaccheaus is a guy that you're looking at for that last spot all the time. 7 catches feels a bit high, but 33 yards feels a bit low. But even if you move the catches down and the yards up, you're going to come out in that 8.9 range with Olamide Zaccheaus. And if you're in a start 10, 11, 12, probably 11 or 12, and you've got, 2 or 3 flexes, you're going to take 9 points out of your last flex, pretty much on a weekly basis and be kind of happy with it. And know that he's going to pop a touchdown here and there, and it's going to give you a little bit of an extra boost.
Meanwhile, for the Ravens, Jackson, despite being initially listed as a full practice on Friday, they said it was actually a full practice. They said it was a full practice, but it was with the scout team, which according to NFL guidelines, since he's considered the starter, should have been listed as a limited practice. Anyway, Tyler Huntley getting the start looked very Lamar Jackson-like, pretty efficient as a passer, not spectacular, pretty efficient as a runner. They got 2 Derrick Henry touchdowns. But I want to ask you about Cooper Rush. Rush was a solid backup quarterback for the Cowboys, a guy who came in and won quite a few games as a free agent. The Ravens splashed out a pretty decent 2-year deal for him. And after watching him completely struggle without Lamar, they went back to Huntley, who has bounced around and was a guy that they picked up. What do you think this means for Cooper Rush?
So I think Cooper Rush, the rest of his backup career, needs to be on a team that has an offense not built for Lamar Jackson. He's just not that kind of quarterback. And I think that, well, can he maybe do some stuff once in a while? Sure. But if Derrick Henry's not out there giving you 20 for 105 and 2 touchdowns, then I think the offense starts to struggle because it is tailor-made to what Lamar Jackson does. And I think Snoop Huntley is more suited as the backup there. By no stretch is Snoop Huntley as good as Lamar Jackson. I just think his style is significantly more similar to Lamar than Cooper Rush. Lamar's got a pretty good arm. Huntley doesn't have the arm that Lamar does, doesn't have the speed he does, but he is a fairly mobile quarterback with a little bit of rushing ability. And Cooper Rush just isn't. I think Cooper Rush, put him down in Miami, let him back up Tua. That's if I'm Miami, would I rather have a left-handed quarterback backing him up like Dillon Gabriel so everything is exactly the same? Sure. But Cooper Rush is he'd be better served, I think, in that type of offense there.
The Houston Texans hosted the San Francisco 49ers and got the 26-15 victory. After starting out 3-0 as a spot starter for Brock Purdy, the shine has come off of the Mac Jones apple a little bit the last couple of weeks. Do you think the 49ers just need Purdy back to be more dynamic?
Purdy probably is a little bit better than Jones, but I think it's safe to say Houston's got a very, very, very good defense. And, Houston would probably be a couple more games up in the win column if their offense had performed, because by and large, their defense has played really well. Houston hasn't had much in the way of a running game, and Stroud spent the beginning of the year pretty inconsistent. He had a very good game this week. But yeah, Mac Jones, he's probably one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. But he may not be one of the best 28 quarterbacks in the NFL, or maybe even probably definitely barely, could he be top 25 as in 25? Maybe, if he had, he's a guy you got to have the right kind of team around. And by and large, San Francisco does.
Yeah, I didn't think he was too bad. I thought a couple weeks ago, that Tampa Bay game, it looked like he struggled a little bit with some turnover. It's just the last 3 games, 4 interceptions, only 2 touchdowns. I think maybe a product of too many injuries and too much pressure.
I mean, if I'm him, I'd much rather have, Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall out there and George Kittle for all of my games,
Well, Kittle was back. Juwan Jennings back healthy. They're getting closer to being healthy. They couldn't get any running going either, which was not a great sign. Only 48 yards rushing as a team, 23 of those from 2 Mac Jones scrambles. The Texans, meanwhile, looked a lot better on offense. C.J. Stroud, probably his best game since his rookie season, going for over 300 yards, spreading it around. And this despite missing Nico Collins and Christian Kirk. They got Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins all stepping up, Woody Marks, both those a receiver and a runner, Chubb running well. Was this a good sign for a Texans team that was desperate for a win?
It was a great sign for them. Now, we have to be cognizant that the San Francisco defense is kind of depleted. They've lost a lot of their top talent. So it's one of those situations where you need Stroud and the Texans to play well against teams that they have an advantage because they're healthier. Now, that being said, even with San Francisco's depleted defensive line, Houston's offensive line isn't great, and they were able to see. I don't think they didn't get any sacks on C.J. Stroud. Stroud ran the ball 7 times, probably a little more than he would like, but Stroud is a decent athlete. He just doesn't run. He's one of those guys he's always looking down the field. If we could get Woody Marks to be as efficient Nick Chubb to be as efficient as Woody Marks was in the running game this week, or Woody Marks to get the number of touches Nick Chubb did, that would be great. So, I think Marks is. I don't think we see Joe Mixon this year. I think that there's
really
a lot of
0 updates.
Yeah. And even asked about it after the game, DeMeco Ryans was asked, do you have an update on Joe Mixon? And he said, no.
Well, and they never really have said much about what the injury is. It's a very strange situation. Moving on, Tampa Bay facing the New Orleans Saints get the 23-3 victory. Dennis, big week for a guy you like, and that is Sean Tucker. Had 12 carries, gets 42 yards and a touchdown, helping to fill the void in the backfield with Bucky Irving out again. It is a contract year for Tucker, who is in his 3rd season. We've seen some flashes. He's kind of buried in Tampa Bay, but what do you think of his potential future?
I don't know. I want to feel like he's in that Michael Burner Turner situation where there's just enough talent in front of him. Now, there's no LaDainian Tomlinson in front of him, but Bucky Irving's shown himself to be pretty good. And then after his rookie contract, he can go somewhere, be a starter, and have a good career in his own right. But also, it's Rachaad White's final year of his contract, too. So if I'm Tampa, I want to bring back one of these guys to keep with Bucky. Tucker will probably be the cheaper guy to keep. He's got some explosiveness, good size. He's 5'9", 5'10", 209 pounds. He can catch the ball a little bit, not quite as good as White, and probably not as good as Irving. But he's probably the most powerful of the 3 backs. So on one hand, I'd love for him to, get his Rico Dowdle shot in Dallas, where finally, it's been 3 years. I get a shot to go be the guy. Let me see what I can do. But I expect he'll probably end up back in Tampa, backing up Bucky Irving, and Rachaad White will be the guy that's on the move.
Meanwhile, for New Orleans, after some ugly plays and some ugly turnovers, Spencer Rattler got the hook. They inserted rookie Tyler Shook. He wasn't a lot better, 17 of 30, 128 yards, no touchdowns, interception, ran for 12 yards on 3 carries. He is getting the start going forward. Do you think it's the right move to see what they have in Shook?
I'm not quite ready to say he's getting the start going forward. I think he's getting the start this week, and it'll depend on how he plays. But if he's going to complete 53% of his passes like he did this week, he probably ain't going to start for much longer. Unfortunately, I don't know if Rattler tried to play too safe for most of the season, and that hampered the ability of the offense to score points. He didn't run away with the job. He's got, with Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, there was enough weapons there. They should have been able to be more productive. And Rattler honestly just wasn't getting it done in the point scoring area. So I'm not surprised Shook is getting a chance. But if Shook doesn't do any better, I don't know that he's going to be able to secure the job either. If he's going to complete, in the mid 50s for his completion percentage and, get the occasional touchdown, I would bet that Kellen Moore goes and gets his own quarterback next year.
Another not great game in the late afternoon window. The Colts hosted the Tennessee Titans, got the 38-14 victory. For the Titans, Chimere Dike, the rookie, another good game. He has caught 11 passes for 163 yards the past 2 weeks. Are you buying into him at all?
They've kind of telegraphed going all the way back to preseason that they like DK and that they were going to let him have an opportunity to grow into a role. They had Tyler Lockett, they had Calvin Ridley, and then they drafted Elike Omenor ahead of him, Chigoziem Okonkwo at tight end with Pollard and Spears. So he was going to need some injuries or to really make some fantastic plays to get any significant playing time. He's had injuries kind of open up opportunity for him, and when given the opportunity, he's producing. If you think back, what was it, 3 years ago? We talked ad nauseum about Jordan Love and that stable of very young wide receivers that they were all going to have the opportunity to grow with. Tennessee's got Elike Omenor, who is a rookie, Chimere Dike, who's a rookie, Gunnar Helm, who is a rookie. There's an Xavier Restrepo who played with Cam Ward in college. So there is an opportunity for this team to grow. They need offensive line help. They're going to have to invest there. I think they're going to slow play the running back position with Spears and Pollard and just kind of see where that goes. But with Okonkwo and Helm at tight end and these young wide receivers and hopefully getting Calvin Ridley back, they'll be able to have an opportunity to grow the offense and get better. I don't know if they'll be able to do enough to what they can. Callahan, didn't they? So
yeah, they did.
They're not, I hope they don't decide to keep Mike McCoy. Hopefully they bring in an offensive mind that's able to make stuff happen here.
Just one note, Chimere Dike and Omenor and Helm all went in the 4th round. Dike was actually the highest drafted. He was the first pick of the 4th round. The other two went a little bit later in the 4th round.
It felt to me like Omenor went like at least 3rd round, but
he was pick 22 of the 4th round. Helm was pick 18. I went and double checked. Jonathan Taylor, another monster game, 153 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, caught a touchdown as well. He's reminding me a little bit of what we saw from Saquon last year. Do you think he could potentially be a dark horse in the MVP race?
I mean, if you take away the 80-yarder, though, he only rushed for 73 yards. So, just kidding.
He
could be
on 11 carries.
Yeah, should be. Yeah, I think right now he's having a monster year. We've seen him be the RB1 before, and while he's probably the biggest cog in this engine right now that's making it click. The writers are going to find a way to give it to a quarterback. And no, I'm not saying Daniel Jones. They're going to give it to, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or, one of those quote unquote elite guys. But yeah, I think like if they had a ceremony like they do with the Heisman, he should be one of the 3 guys there.
Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible. I think what he's really doing is probably salting away offensive player of the year because that's what happened for Barkley. I agree with you. They usually tend to go towards quarterbacks, but Allen's won before, Mahomes has won a couple of times, and neither of those teams is in first place. If the Colts can remain, in contention or get that one seed in the AFC, I Daniel Jones potentially. If I was picking one off the Colts, I think I'd lean toward Jonathan Taylor, but you never can tell. Another afternoon game that was a blowout, fortunately for my heart rate, was the Denver Broncos hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Got the 44-24 victory. Wasn't even really that close for most of the game. A kind of a clunker for Dak Prescott after what had been a pretty impressive year. But I think the real question is, can Dallas's offense overcome how bad this defense is?
No. I mean, they'd have to score 45 points a game. While they may have some weeks where they do that, they're just not going to be able to do that at any kind of regular pace. They're giving up 31.3 points per game, just behind Cincinnati at 31.6. So, where are they? The two teams that we expected would throw the ball the most. Well, Dak only threw the ball 31 times this week. Milton threw it 4 times. They probably, if they wanted to stay competitive, they probably needed to throw it even more. I like, it's great for fantasy. Javonte Williams, 41 yards with 2 touchdowns. Well, Prescott didn't have a great week. Pickens, 7 for 78. Lamb, 7 for 74. Tolbert, 47 yards and a touchdown.
That was
Ferguson
pure garbage time against backups.
Yeah. Ferguson didn't do diddly, but what is it? They got the QB 8, the running back 5. Pickens.
I was surprised about the Ferguson because I would have thought, if anything, they would have been able to go over the middle, but they were smothering Jake Ferguson. They were using that was actually one of Dak's interceptions. They were using Jahdae Barron, a corner, to cover Ferguson down the middle, and they were rotating safeties into the middle. It was a fascinating defensive decision. I'm just going to hold this up as Denver's one complete game because now Pat Surtain is gone. So I'm going to be crying. But Troy Franklin, 8 targets, caught 6 for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. Are you feeling a little more optimistic about him?
He's established himself as the 1B, I feel. Is either the 2 or the 1B, but there's just so much volatility to his game. He's got 2 games with 24 points or more and 3 games with 3.1 points or fewer. So much like your game last week with Denver, if you're putting Franklin in a wide receiver slot instead of as a flex spot, your heart's going to be pounding because you could get a 25-point game or you could get a 3-point game.
Well, they talked about they needed to spend more time giving targets to Marvin Mims this week, and he got 1 target and no receptions. So and no rushing.
He did get 3 carries. So, there's always that. No, it's Pat Bryant had four targets. It was they're starting to come around. The run game is working well. RJ Harvey had the nice long touchdown run. J.K. Dobbins is grinding it out, 111 yards. He's doing well. And then you've got Sutton and Franklin and Evan Ingram and Mims to be able to stretch the field and work the intermediate areas. So Denver has a nice offense.
At times. At least 1 quarter a game, maybe. Sunday Night Football, the Green Bay Packers went to Pittsburgh, got the 35-25 victory. Dennis, your man, Christian Watson, was back. 4 targets, caught all 4 of them for 85 yards. What did you think of the return?
He played the third most snaps at the wide receiver position. I think that's great because they do have some depth there, though. With seems like somebody was out. Dobbs, Golden,
Dontavian Wicks.
Dontavian Wicks. So him tying Emmanuel Wilson for third in targets. You'll take that at over 21 yards per catch. That's great. He didn't get in the end zone. Tucker Kraft had a monster game. But with Watson did what we drafted him to do. He's a guy that you expect to play deep, to give you that over-the-top threat, to use that 4.3 speed and that 6'4" frame to get downfield and make big plays. Well, he did it. 4 passes for 85 yards. I think you'll take that every week because if he's catching 4 passes for 80 plus yards, he's probably going to have a touchdown every other week as well.
Meanwhile, the Steelers lose their second straight, now only 4-3. They're still leading the division, but at no point in time when I'm watching this team during this season have I felt like they are good enough to be competitive in the playoffs. Do you feel any different?
Is anybody in that division good enough to be competitive in the playoffs?
No, I mean they might make it, but this is another classic Aaron Rodgers screaming expletives at a teammate because he didn't like what was going on, and they seem so mediocre.
Somebody's got to win the AFC North, and it's going to come down to the Steelers or the Ravens.
I was going to say, I think it still might be the Ravens.
The Ravens, they're going to have to, Lamar's got to come back next week. They're running out of time. They need Lamar to come back, and then they need to go on a run. If not, it's going to be the Steelers that win the division. I don't think there's going to be 2 teams coming out of the AFC North into the playoffs. Whoever wins the division gets to be the one and out this year.
Yeah. Monday Night Football was also a clunker. The Washington Commanders went to Kansas City, who won 28-7. The Commanders did keep it closer than I was expecting through the first half, thanks to a couple of Mahomes turnovers, but really got walked in the second half. Is there something the Commanders really do well? They're 3-5 now. They don't have a very good passing game. They've had a really uneven and uninspiring running game. Their defense has seemed a little vulnerable. It feels like they have taken a big step down from where they were last year.
I mean, who'd have thought that Brian Robinson was the key to this offense doing great? No, I mean, they kind of don't do anything well. They're middle to lower in the pack when it comes to running the ball, throwing the ball, receiving the ball. And on defense, again, they're bottom half to bottom third or worse against the run, against the pass. And it hasn't helped that Terry McLaurin has missed a bunch of games. Debo missed some games. Jaden Daniels has missed some games. They've had some injuries along the offensive line. Now, I will say, for all the shit that he's gotten, that was a fantastic interception by Marshawn Lattimore. So, unfortunately, Mariota, he missed some things. There were some things he didn't see that led to sacks. There were a couple times where he was running the ball and he was just a half a step from getting a huge gain and making a difference. But Krosky Merritt couldn't get anything done in the running game. Rodriguez and McNichols each had just one carry. It was not a stellar performance on the ground.
Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, a pretty good game for Travis Kelce, who caught a touchdown that helped him set some milestones. It was his 100th receiving touch, or his 100th touchdown reception during his career. If you include regular and postseason, he became the 4th tight end ever to hit that mark. It was also his 83rd during the regular season, which tied him with Priest Holmes for the all-time mark for the Chiefs. A lot of people talking about his place in NFL. Where would you rank Travis Kelce?
So when I saw that listed on the show sheet, my recency bias immediately went, well, he's going to be the best, probably the greatest. And then I looked and, he's played 90 fewer games than Tony Gonzalez. I mean, that's a lot. That's like 4 whole seasons. He was a 4-time first team All-Pro, 3-time second team All-Pro. Gonzalez was a 6-time first team All-Pro. Gonzalez's fantasy finishes here. Slow start, tight end 24 his first year, tight end 12 his second. But then Gonzalez went tight end 1, tight end 1, tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 2, tight end 1, tight end 4, tight end 4, tight end 2, tight end 1. And then he was washed up and he went to the Falcons and played 5 more seasons where he was tight end 5, tight end 7, tight end 6, tight end 3, tight end 4. Travis has been great. He was tight end 6 and 7 his first couple years, but then he was tight end 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, and he's currently tight end 3. I think Travis needs to play at this pretty close to the level he's at this year for 3 or 4 more years before I'll say he's the best. I think Gonzalez is the best. I do think Travis is a first ballot Hall of Famer. But life is different now than it was when Tony Gonzalez hung it up 15 years ago or whatever it was. Travis is in a situation where he's making a ton of money off the field. Money on the field is great. And he's engaged to the biggest pop star in the world. And they're both in their mid-30s. And it seems like if they're going to do life together, they're probably going to go have some babies the next few years. So it wouldn't surprise me if he walked away after this year. But I still think he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I feel that way too. And I think, it solidifies him for me probably in top 5 all time, but I wouldn't have him at the top. I actually probably wouldn't have Tony Gonzalez at the top. I would rather Antonio Gates, Rob Gronkowski. I would probably take Shannon Sharp over them. I think that's where it gets a little difficult too when you're comparing eras, because some of those guys did not play during the passing explosion that we've seen in more modern times. But, then Gonzalez and Travis Kelce, I think you have to consider them all, right in that group. There are some great people that have played. I think he's been a great player, and he's been a consistently great player. I mean, for a number of years when he played, just from a fantasy perspective, he was one of like 1 or 2 guys that were an automatic positional advantage. I think that's faded away the last 2 or 3 years as the tight end pool has gotten deeper and he's come back to the pack a little bit. But what he's done has been pretty incredible. He's going to hold a lot of Chiefs records, which will be great. But I'm with you. I actually think this may be it for him, because there are a lot of things bubbling up on the internet that they've already bought a house in Philadelphia near his brother. His brother could have played more years but walked away because he had some good opportunities off the field and wanted to protect his long-term health. Travis has plenty of good opportunities off. I may hate the Chiefs, but I really enjoy the New Heights podcast and clips. I think they do well. I think he would be a decent TV personality. He's actually been in TV shows and movies where I think he has some decent acting ability. So I think this could very well be the end for him. And if it is, I'm with you. He goes into the Hall of Fame, and I think he's in that conversation among the best tight ends ever. And it probably depends a little bit on your personal preference. That is a wrap on what was a mediocre week 8 of the NFL season. We will be back on Thursday to preview week 9. 4 teams on a bye. There are a few better matchups, including some really marquee matchups among potential contenders in the AFC in the morning and in the late window. The primetime games, though, are pretty mediocre. Thursday night, the Ravens at the Dolphins. Sunday night, the Seahawks at the Commanders. And Monday night, the Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys. So you may want to do some good bulk watching during the day. But we will wrap up there. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you guys on Thursday.